Next, we want to look at two examples of the quadratic formula where your solutions come out to be irrational, which means they still have a square root in the solution. Okay, so if we look at the example 2x squared plus 4x equals 3, go ahead and set that equal to 0 by taking that 3 and subtracting it over to the other side, which will make it negative. You have 2x squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so A is 2, B is 4, C is negative 3. All right, if you plug that into the quadratic formula, negative b, our b is positive this time, so it'll be negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 3, and then all that is divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 2. Okay, find the discriminant. Calculate this part right here. 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 3. All right, when you calculate that without typing the square root in, you should get 40. All right, so we're going to simplify a little bit. We have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 40 divided by 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so 40 is still a positive number, so we're still going to get two real solutions. But this time, 40 is not a perfect square like 121 was. So we can't just take the square root. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little factor tree, and we're going to simplify the square root of 40. So you can break 40 down into 2 and 20, or 5 and 8, or 4 and 10. I'm just going to use 4 and 10. Keep branching until those numbers are prime. 2 and 2, 2 and 5. You want a pair that matches. So we have a pair of 2's, and then we have 2 left over that don't match. So this is going to simplify into 2 square root 10. So we're going to come back over here to the problem, and we're going to replace that with 2 square root 10. So we have negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root 10, all divided by 4. Okay, so technically this is our answer. It's just not simplified all the way. When you have a problem like this that's going to be irrational, where you know the answer is going to still have a square root in it, you just want to make sure everything's simplified. So you want to look at this number, and this number. Don't worry about the number in the radical. But if these three numbers right here all have something in common, you can divide by whatever they have in common to completely simplify it. So they all three have a 2 in common. So I want to go ahead and divide everything by 2, which makes this a 2, makes this a 1, which means we don't have to write it because we've got that square root of 10 behind it to hold its place, and then that makes this a 2. So that's our final answer. And it's considered irrational because of the square root. Now, when you do your My Open Math assignment, sometimes it asks to put these answers in separately instead of putting them in at one time with a plus and minus. It asks for them separately, which means you would have to type negative 2 minus square root 10 over 2 as one answer, and then negative 2 plus square root 10 over 2 as a separate answer. So putting the minus and the plus as two different answers. Okay, so that's one with irrational answers. And then if you'll go down to the bottom to 5x squared plus 6x equals 2, this is another one that's going to come out that way. Subtract the 2 over. We're going to have 5x squared plus 6x minus 2 equals 0. So A is 5, B is 6, and C is negative 2. So if you plug that into the quadratic formula, you have negative 6 for negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, and c, which is negative 2. And then all that is divided by 2a, so 2 times 5. All right, calculate what your discriminant is. 6 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 2 without the square root. When you calculate that, you should get 76. So if we simplify a little bit, we're going to have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 76 over 10. Okay, 76 is positive, so two real solutions, but it's not a perfect square. So same thing, we're going to do a factor tree for 76. Let's see, for 76, you could use 2 and 38. 2's already prime. For 38, you could use 2 and 19. And both of those are prime. So here you have a pair of 2's. So you can bring out a 2 and leave a 19 in. So if you come back over here and write that, you're going to have negative 6 plus or minus 2 square root 19 all divided by 10. And then the same concept applies. These three numbers have to all be divisible by the same thing to be able to reduce that. And they are. They're all divisible by 2. So divide all that by 2. That'll make the 6 a negative 3. The 2 will become a 1, which you don't have to write because you've got the square root 19 back there. And the 10 will become a 5. And those are your two solutions. The plus and the minus makes it count as two solutions.